What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Young Legends podcast, where we help you get the cheat codes to the game of life. I'm your host, Caption, aka Caption Red, and we have an amazing guest joining us today, Mr. Chris Ruden. Chris Ruden was recently a contestant on the Titan Games with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he is an elite powerlifter, motivational speaker, entrepreneur, and model, all while being a type 1 diabetic and being born with only one hand. He is a super inspirational person, and he travels the country and the world with a message of motivation, positivity, and hope. Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, man. When I got to see your bio and everything that you've done, I was so super excited about just being able to interview you and learn from you and just hear about all the cool things you're doing. I'm really excited about this. Now, I like to start my interviews with a fun, inspirational, cool story. Everybody likes a cool story. Do you have any stories that you'd like to share as far as things that have happened through your life journey?
Absolutely, man. You know, I was born with a physical disability. I was born permanently attractive. At least that's
Nice.
what my mom told me. No, but for real, I was born with 2 fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. And, you know, I was always that disabled kid in school. I used to get bullied my entire life. And, you know, I'll never forget in middle school, there was this girl named Crystal that I wanted to ask out. She was the prettiest girl in school. And to be fair, there was only like 5 girls in that school, but she was the prettiest of those 5. Okay.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And this girl, Crystal, I just wanted to ask her out. She was going to be my first girlfriend. You know, I finally worked up the courage to talk to her. And I went up to the front of the room. I'll never forget this. My friend started laughing and I turned around. I'm like, guys, stop. You're going to mess this up for me. I turned back around and she's making fun of my hand with the stapler, calling me claw boy because I only have 2 fingers.
Oh.
And for 17 years, I shoved my hand in my pocket and I hid my disability. And it's so crazy to go from that, hiding my disability, who I am, to accepting myself fully, being on a TV show with The Rock and all this other stuff we're going to talk about. But just know that in that time, I thought there was never going to be a way out. And I promise you, the way out is the way through. And that's why we're here today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that story. That's a great story to hear.
Absolutely,
because,
man.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny how when we're that age, oftentimes our current situation feels like it's going to be our forever situation. And if only we had known back then, right?
Absolutely, man. You know, pain is temporary, but on the flip side, so is success. So whatever you're currently going through can change and will change eventually. You know, it's going to be up to you to adapt and overcome every scenario, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great saying, man. You should get that. Can you trademark that?
Man, to be honest, I don't remember half the stuff I say. I feel like I speak in like Hallmark cards and it just comes out and people are like, oh man, is that like yours? I'm like, I don't know, man. I just made it up and I have such a bad memory. I can't even remember what I just said. But
Yeah.
That's also why I love speaking, man. I love being able to share ideas and share value with people. And if someone gets one thing from what I said and makes a change, you know, I can't make anyone change. But what I can do is put people in a position to change themselves. And if that perspective helps, I did my job, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I've seen your videos. I know that you are helping make people, not making people change, but helping people change themselves. So
Absolutely.
That's definitely positive, man. Good stuff. So I'm just dying to know about this whole appearance on television. It doesn't happen for most people, national television. How did that transpire? Because, you know, it's kind of cool to be able to say, hey, look, I'm on national TV, and have your friends and family just be able to tune in and see you and the rest of the world, I guess.
It was pretty crazy, man, to be honest. You know, I'm a pro powerlifter, so I'm one of the strongest disabled diabetic powerlifters in the world. And we lift heavy weight, but we don't do like athletic type stuff, you know? So I guess you could say I hate the word influencer, but people call me an influencer on social media because of Instagram and YouTube and all that. But they found me through social media and they reached out to me and they said, you know, hey, over 100,000 people applied to be on this show. We want to have you come out and compete for a spot. I thought it was fake, you know, And I almost didn't write that email back. That would have been a very big mistake. But I wrote back and they flew me out to LA. We did a 10-hour combine where we got to compete against 100 other people for a spot on this TV show. I just thought it was cool. I didn't think I would get in because there were some crazy athletes on there. And, I did my thing. We did everything we need to. I went home. I was like, it's cool if I don't get picked because at the end of the day, it's not what I do. And that was awesome. I got the call, and out of 100 people, 100,000 people applied. 100 people were competing for a spot. 32 guys were picked, and I made the cut. And not only did I make the cut, they picked 2 guys to be on the cover with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who hosts the show, if you know who that guy is. Mm-hmm. And I'm on the cover and all the billboards. So you Google it to this day. I'm on all the things. So it was like, it was really cool, surreal experience. I didn't win the TV show, but I did get to share my message on international TV. And the Rock hugged me. It kind of made him cry a little bit. And it was amazing, not only to be on TV, but to show, that one kid or that one adult or that one person that might be struggling with a disability or depression or anxiety or any of the things that I went through, to show them that there is a way. There is a way to get through that stuff and fight. There's a way to adapt, and there's a way to kill it and succeed in your own life, whatever method it might take. However long it might take, there is a way. And I made it. If I can give someone that perspective or that hope that they can do it too, I'm happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just imagine being in any kind of situation close to yours, or, just having any kind of, I don't want to use the word disability, but
you could say, disability is fine.
Yeah. I remember you saying like different ability or something like
that.
Yeah,
there's so many, it's all, I guess, personal. Some people like certain words, but at the end of the day, we have different abilities, and differently abled is a way to refer to people. But we all have different ways to adapt, and everyone has to adapt because there's no same person. Everyone is individual. So my individuality just happens to be seen. Some people's individualities aren't seen,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way of putting that. So tell me about, because I read online about, you were younger and you weren't a natural born athlete. Like, you look like you're a natural born athlete, but you weren't a natural born athlete. You had to work really hard. So what was that like growing up, and the transition points of when you started to exercise and become who you are today? I guess the Cliff Notes version of it.
Absolutely. Like I said, I grew up with a disability and not the best area. So I always was competitive. I always wanted to find a way to be better, not just better than other people. Like, I'm so competitive. I'm the kind of person that, I'm walking next to an old lady and I'm going to walk faster. She doesn't know we're racing, but I'm winning, like, she doesn't know. That's who I am. So I kind of took that and I applied it to everything in my life. I played drums with one hand, for 4 years. I did dance, break dance and hip hop. I did martial arts. I tried to find everything to prove to myself that I could do it. And I eventually found fitness because I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It's an autoimmune disease where I have to take insulin, 5 to 10 times a day. And I need that to survive. So around the time I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was like, all right, what can I do with what I got right now to make a change in the world that would make me be better? You teach best what you need to learn most. So how could I help other people with their health while at the same time motivating me to stay healthy? I started getting into exercise and I started changing my body, and people were like, oh, when did Chris get abs? And that was a defining moment. I was like, oh, Chris got abs. What's up? And then I was like, oh, I kind of fell in love with how hard it was having one hand and having diabetes to lift weights and to become a bodybuilder. I was like, man, that's what I want to do. And I started training and I realized it takes a long time to build muscle. I was 140 pounds in high school. I was president of the chess club. I did all kinds of weird stuff. I'm the only guy with an exercise science degree from college that didn't like sports, So I was really, really not the typical jock where people see me now. They see my swoopy hair and they see my pretty pictures on Instagram and they see my body and they're like, oh, you must be, a man's man. I'm like, no, that's just what you see on the outside now. You don't know what was under the iceberg, So I fell in love with lifting and I started lifting heavy. I got invited to lift at a powerlifting meet, which is just max weight, as heavy as you can. I won. And then I won 5 powerlifting meets after that. And then I was invited to lift in front of 20,000 people at the biggest sports festival in the world. And that's where I broke a unofficial world record among people with disabilities. And ever since then, dude, I love it.
That's amazing, man. That's really cool. And I imagine people lose their minds when they watch you work out. I know that I would lose my mind.
Oh, I had someone this morning, come up to me while I'm benching. Cause when I bench press, I just balance the bar on my residual limb. So there's no real hand holding it. And people are kind of scared when I bench press, over 300 pounds. The guy came up to me and said, man, that's incredible, and that's cool. But to me, it's normal because that's what I've had to do to adapt. And I love that people like it. But at the end of the day, when no one's cheering you on, are you still going to do it? The applause is nice, but for me, it's me accomplishing my own goal every day of overcoming myself and overcoming those old thoughts of how I used to think about myself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's amazing. So, what was that transition like of the old thoughts? Obviously, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Everything takes years. Your bodybuilding took years. So, as you sit here and speak about it earlier, the girl who was being very cruel and made you self-conscious, and then what was that journey like of old thoughts to new thoughts?
Absolutely. So I don't know if you're a big reader or anyone listening is a big reader, but Power of Moments is a great book. And that's kind of how I view my life. There's big defining moments that caused a little catalyst or a shift in how I thought. So definitely that girl was one of them, hiding my hand, that got to me. One of the bigger moments was me working with this kid named David, who's 11 years old, and he had cerebral palsy. He couldn't really walk, couldn't really talk. His mom reached out to me when I started the exercise science program at my college. And she was like, hey, I would love for you to work with my son. He has cerebral palsy, but we need, to help him fitness wise to get stronger and just somehow better his quality of life. So I started working with him, and I just fell in love with this kid. And he was amazing. I would hold him up and literally like manually hold his leg to kick the ball. And he'd be so happy, and he would fall and he would stand back up and he didn't care. And one day he came home from school, in middle school, that same time that I had my hardest struggle. He was like, Chris, these kids are making fun of me for the way I talk and the way I walk. And I was like, oh man, that's fine. Just show me where they're at. I'll kill them. That's fine. That's fine. No
Nice.
problem. But before I could finish my death threat, he was like, to the degree he said, oh, it's okay. They don't define me. And then just went on to doing the workout. And I was like, this kid, I think back now and I'm like, this kid learned something so pivotal that took me almost 20 years to learn. And he lives it every single day. That was one of those moments where I was like, man, I have no right to self-pity, to self-deprecate myself and to like bring myself down when this kid is just doing it. He is doing it, he's killing it. So that was a big moment for me. And one of the other moments was realizing how grateful, practicing gratitude. That's probably the hardest thing to do over here, especially in the United States. After the Titan Games, 2 months after, I went to Uganda, Africa, to speak to 64 type 1 diabetic kids. Over here, diabetes you can live with for the rest of your life. You take insulin, you manage it. Over there, the average lifespan of a newly diagnosed type 1 diabetic is 1 year. I went there and they had literally nothing. 1 out of the 64 kids had a refrigerator. The rest had to cool their medication on the top of their huts, not houses, huts. The nurses was stealing their medication and selling it so they could make money, leaving the kids to inject themselves with water and dying. Literally that bad. I'll never forget, giving a speech over there and they were translating in different dialects. And then I was running the fitness program. I was like, hey guys, put your shoes on. We're going to go play soccer. It'll be awesome. And the kids were like, we don't have shoes. And that killed me. I was like, man, what? I was about to get in a really bad mood, but then I saw them playing. I saw them out there just having a blast, enjoying each other, the tattered clothes, no shoes, everything we have over here, they didn't. And they were so happy. And I think about how much we have and we're not grateful for anything because we want everything. You know what I'm saying? We are so wanting of things we don't have that we don't appreciate anything we do. To us, we would see them and we would say they have nothing. To them, they have everything they need. Why is that? perspective. That was a big perspective shift for me. And since then, I've learned to practice and incorporate gratitude into my life. And it's one of the hardest things to do is to live now.
Sure. No, I'm with you on that. So how do you practice that gratitude? Like, what are I know a lot of people have different methods and different exercises that they do to practice gratitude. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two actionable items for people. I actually did a talk recently, last week, on confidence without limits. And I talked about two ways of practicing gratitude, so to speak. So I have a method called catch, challenge, change. Think of a triangle and catch on the bottom, challenge on the top, change on the other side. You have to catch the feeling, you have to challenge the feeling, and you have to change the feeling. So anytime you get into a negative or more so hurtful feeling of, oh, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, in that wanting phase, do you need it? Is that a necessity? What else do you have that most people don't? What are you doing right now that's doing good? Instead of focusing on what you don't have, why don't you focus on what you do have? Instead of pushing focus on things you can't control, that concern area, why don't you focus on things you can control, that influence area? What do you influence currently, and why don't you focus on the things that you have? So that was a big factor for me. We wake up, we worry about work. We're on our way to work, we're worrying about work. Then when we're working, we're worrying about lunch. And then after lunch, we're worrying about the rest of work. Then we go home, we're worried about some of the work we have to do. We're just never in the moment. We're constantly worried about what's coming. So we never actually lived. We live in fear. We live in anticipation. So that was a big way for me to start practicing gratitude and focus on what is. And then there's the concept of conditional versus unconditional life, or conditional versus unconditional quality of life. Conditional quality of life, most people live by, especially with social media. I would be so happy if I had this. I would be happy if I had the newest iPhone. I would be happy if I had this guy's level of success. I would be happy if I traveled more. I would be happy if. Everything is based on a condition versus the way you should live, unconditional quality of life. I am happy with where I'm at, and I am striving for more. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's good.
Practicing unconditional quality of life with that catch, challenge, change method will indefinitely change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have a video on on either one of these on your YouTube channel? Because I know you're very active on YouTube. I love your videos, by the way; they're great.
So actually, the last few months I've been a little slow on it just because I've been traveling, but that is a new talk I just gave, and I'm going to start posting probably in the next few weeks. So by the time this podcast is up, people should have a reference link for that. I appreciate you saying that as well, because some of these things are recent for me. It's last December, so it's still one of those things that it takes constant effort. I don't want people to hear this and think, oh, I'm perfect at this. I still struggle. I still get mad. I still get sad. I still get frustrated, but it's constant effort. It's like taking a bath. You can't do it once a month and expect to be clean all the time. You have to stay on it. You have to stay on your thoughts. The unfortunate thing is the only thing you can control in life is your thoughts. The awesome thing is the only thing you can control in life is your thoughts. It's all perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of controlling your thoughts, I love the catch, challenge, change thing that you do.
Yeah.
What do you do when you just start going? Do you ever go on a train of negativity? I think that's kind of I want to say it's a relatively normal
Oh, it's normal for sure. Yeah, it's absolutely normal.
And so could you walk me through exactly how you said you go to war with those thoughts?
Absolutely. So I love that you use the train methodology because it sets me up perfectly for this. We're talking about like a commuter train, okay? Mm-hmm. Guess what? A commuter train has about 12 stops. You decide when you get off. Because no one forced you on that train, and no one's going to force you off. It was all a decision. You decided to get on. You can decide when to get off. You decide how much hell you're willing to walk through, because at the end of the day, it's the way you're thinking that's that train ride. This is where people are going to say, I love anticipating because I was this person, okay? People from that thought are going to say, yeah, Chris, guess what? Easier said than done, right? You've heard that. You've heard that phrase, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? Everything is easier said than done. Farting is easier said than done. Literally, I can say it quicker than you can do it.
Sure.
It is much easier to say things than to do things. But
Right.
guess what? That's an ineffective thought. That's an ineffective statement. Why not try this? Instead of saying easier said than done, say better done than said, because that's the truth. Regardless of how easy it is to say it, it's more effective to do it, to get it done. I don't care if you want to do it, you have to do it. People are like, oh man, how do you stay so motivated, Chris? That's nuts. You know, I want to learn that. It's not motivation. I'm lazy. I am lazy. I'm a real person. I am super lazy. I love to chill on the couch and watch Netflix and turn my phone off so I don't have to read emails. It's not about motivation. It's how do you develop the discipline to do the stuff you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it. Motivation comes after action, not before action. You don't wait till you're motivated. You don't wait till you're conditional. You do it, and then you stay motivated because you're like, wow, I did it. Let's keep going. Wow, I did it. Let's keep going. That is how you do it, and that's how you get off the train. You get off that train by choosing to get off that train, whether you want to or not.
Right. Absolutely. That's good. And so when you sit here and say that motivation comes after action, what do you tell yourself to get yourself going, if that's the case, which it is?
It is.
What's that conversation you have with yourself?
I acknowledge. Oh, I absolutely acknowledge that I don't want to do this. Absolutely. Let's take a gym, for example. I'm like, I don't feel like going to the gym today, but I have to because these are my goals and this is what I have to do. I'll feel better after I do it, so just do it. I love this little game I'm going to play with you real quick, okay? Do you have a job?
Yes.
Do you have to go to work?
Well, I mean, if I want to get paid, sure. Yeah.
Technically, you don't. You could be homeless. You could lose everything you own. You could live under a bridge, correct?
Sure, absolutely.
So how is it that we can convince ourselves that a desire to not be homeless is a necessity to go to work? If we have the ability to convince ourselves that a desire is a necessity, like we do with our job, like most people do, we could be homeless. We could lose everything we own. We just don't want to. So now we talk to ourselves in necessities, even though in reality they're a desire. I need a phone because I have to talk to people. You don't need a phone. You need air, food, and shelter. Those are the three things you technically need. And shelter could be a bridge. Food could be food in the dumpster, you know? You don't want to live that way, so you convince yourself that you have to do certain things. If you have the ability to convince yourself of that, you can use that convincing towards anything in your life, whether it's going to a gym, doing a business, doing a problem, getting yourself out of a rut. It's not going to be comfortable, but you have to do it. Convince yourself that that desire to get out of that situation is a necessity.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah. And ultimately, it's going back to what you said earlier. It's like, what kind of life do you really want? I mean, be grateful, but what kind of life do you really want? And then
absolutely. And there's always little things you can do to fix things in the moment right now. You can decide, what can I do right now to make it a little bit better, to make it suck a little bit less. Honestly, that's break it down into small things. Or what can you do that would make it worse? And don't do that. Ask yourself these questions. Is this thought, is this action, is this belief going to push me forward or hold me back? Use that judgment scale for everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good, man. Man, you're dropping gems.
Oh, I love this one so far. I'm fired up. This is great.
No, it's great, man. You're killing it right now. So, going back to this, you know what? I want to talk about. Okay, so first off, being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes is a difficult thing to go through in life. Tell me, so up until that point, you weren't diagnosed type 1 diabetes, obviously. And then at the age of 19, you were diagnosed. So when that happened, how did you get through that diagnosis? Because it is a serious thing. Like, I didn't realize how serious of a thing it was until I started to spend time with people who had type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So how did you handle that whole situation? Because now your life and your lifestyle has just changed. Let's be honest.
I mean, I handled it very, very differently than most people, because up until that point, my disability was already such a big problem that when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was like, I am not going to let this hold me down even more. Like, I was like, I'm already struggling with the disability thing and the way I feel about my own body. So when the diabetes thing, I was like, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to become an advocate. I'm going to just really run with it. I found some diabetes online forums and some diabetes groups on Facebook. I started talking to people, sharing my story. And then honestly, diabetes changed my life for the better. It got me to be a lot more productive as a person. It made me fulfill this leadership role. And I just took it as an opportunity not to be held down anymore. So I feel like that's what a lot of people do. There's another book I read called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how sometimes the obstacles, the hardest things, there's solutions and problems. So I saw diabetes as a solution, as a way for me to open and share my voice. Because of diabetes, I became a professional speaker. I use that as a way to build my, not only social media, but my status in the diabetes disabled and non-disabled community as a speaker, as a thought leader, as someone who's out there and ready to make a change regardless of what happens to them. So in a lot of ways, I'm thankful for diabetes. It was still very hard. It still is very hard. It's a minute by minute condition that can change at any time. It can change plans that you had within minutes, because you could be extremely high blood sugar, extremely low blood sugar. If you don't have snacks on you, literally it's a condition that you can die from not having snacks or from having too much. So right. It's hard, but it is manageable. And with the right community support and how I did it with advocacy, that helped a lot.
Right. No, that's great, man. That's an amazing attitude to have. I'm glad that you're out there and just speaking and sharing your message and just being a part of that community. Speaking of which, so you're an influencer. You have was it 65,000 Instagram followers? You have a huge YouTube following as well. Going back to that conversation, how do you balance this whole I'm an influencer versus social media, as powerful as it is and as good as it is to spread a message, there's a lot of negative involved with it as well.
Absolutely.
And so how do you interact with it in a way that, it's a necessity. Anybody who's got a message to share has to share the message through something. So it's a necessity. And so can you just speak on how you navigate with that and
absolutely
just keep your own mental health? Yeah. Sorry about that.
I was kind of held captive to social media for a long time. Because I wanted to achieve a certain status, a certain business, a certain look in the community. And it took over my life for a point, because you have to find the algorithm. You have to see when to post. There's when you get the most likes, when you get the most followers, how to up your engagement. I was focused so much, and a lot of people are, was focused so much on social media analytics that I lost sight of the purpose, which was to add value, to educate and entertain. That is technically the purpose. So it was a few months ago that I really stepped away from social media influencer role. And I was just me. I've been posting just who I am, what I do, the value I bring, whether it gets low engagement or extremely high engagement. I'm posting what my life is. And I kind of took my life back from social media. Mental health does go down when you get too obsessed with anything, and social media is included. So I really focus on giving people value. That's what I want to do. I don't want to take away value from myself in the process. So I keep that happy balance between the two. And if I ever feel like one is fading, I just put a little more focus on that.
Sure. So even as you're doing things as extreme, like you said, as not going on social media for a few days, and it won't kill you, right?
And that's okay. That's okay. That's fine. You can post, 10 times a week, or you can post no times a week. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, your value doesn't change based on how many likes or follows you have.
Sure. Absolutely. No, that's nothing but the truth. That's awesome, man. Now I want to go back to, you're a total badass. You've done so many things, but I want to go back to being a middle school, high school kid, and how did you interact with these? You mentioned earlier bullies. How did you navigate those waters for people who are going through the same thing right now?
Well, me personally, I navigated terribly. So okay. I don't want to be an example. I got into a lot of fights. I got into a lot of issues because I hid my depression through anger, and I lied to my parents about being bullied. I never told them what was going on. Communication. If I could go back, I would definitely communicate better to my parents, to my teachers, to things that's one of the best things you can do. And honestly, fighting anger, anything like that makes it so much worse because you're giving the people what they want, which is attention. You're giving them effort. Think about effort as a balloon. The more effort you put into it, the bigger the problem grows. So the more you give in to what they're trying to do to you, the worse it's going to be. So you have to communicate. You have to talk with your parents. You have to talk with teachers if you're getting bullied or anything like that. And you really have to make sure that you live your best life by avoiding them and not feeding into that anger. If anything, compliment them and walk away. That's the hardest thing they could ever try and understand is if you compliment them and walk away. Anytime they say anything to you mean, you compliment them and walk away. Compliment them and walk away.
Yeah, just kill them with kindness, right?
Kill them with kindness.
That's awesome, man. That's great advice. So you mentioned that you would communicate more with the adults in your life. Is there anything else that you would like to tell your younger self, your teenage self, if you could just go back in a time machine and just sit down and have that conversation?
Absolutely. I would tell myself, I would ask, hey, if I called you a giraffe, would you be offended? And I would laugh. I'd be like, no. So why am I offended when someone calls me a loser or when someone calls me disabled or when someone calls me anything else? The only difference is one label I didn't accept, the other label I did. And that's a choice. So I would try to teach myself that you don't have to accept the labels that people try and slap on you. And if you dig a little deeper, you'll realize the reason they're trying to slap labels on you is because they probably have labels that they've accepted for themselves. The struggle they're going through is probably terrible as well. Not to give them a right to do it, but understand you can be the bigger person and you can choose not to accept that label. You don't have to live your life based on someone else's view of you. You don't. How they view you is not your responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great, man. It's funny. People bring their own baggage, like you said, to the conversation and hurt people. And
absolutely.
God, dog,
it's real. That's a real thing. Hurt people do hurt people. And that doesn't give them a right again, but it takes a lot to remove the emotion from a situation. At the end of the day, there's what happened and then the story you tell yourself about what happened. And you can rewrite the narrative at any time. If you're living a crappy movie, change it. Change the way you tell your story, change the way you talk about yourself, change the way you talk to yourself, change your circle. If you're surrounded by people who constantly hold you down, that's not a circle, that's a cage. You got to change that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, let's go with the fire. Let's go. I hope you add some like explosions.
Oh my goodness, that right there was great. Oh
yeah, if you were in an environment, if the people surrounding you bring you down, you are not in a circle, you are in a cage.
No, that's glorious. Okay, that's going on a t-shirt and a billboard.
Boom.
Somewhere. And yeah, we'll make sure you get 100% royalties.
I appreciate you.
That's awesome, man. So a couple things. You're killing it in the fitness game. You're a power lifter. You have the company that you're involved with co-founding. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm also the co-founder of this new healthy bar company, like a protein bar company, NRG Bites. So started by two type 1 diabetics. I'm the co-founder, and we are just serving the community, making sure we have quick little protein bars on the go that are healthy. And it's my new passion project. I absolutely love it. It's been taken off on social media. I'm sure you'll see it in some stores soon. We have it in a few GNCs and some other resorts and all that, but definitely a new project, and I love it, man. It's so much fun, and it's so cool to see people enjoy our products and just to help the community in terms of like eating a little bit healthier, living a little bit better quality of life with good ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're literally serving a need of people who are diabetic.
Exactly. It's anyone, like whether you are just on the go and you're too busy to get a decent food, or you have diabetes, or you have some sort of allergy, everyone, inclusion is really important to me, inclusion and equity. So everyone deserves the same food options. And, if we have a delicious tasting bar that can serve multiple communities, I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Very cool. I'm definitely going to link that to the show notes. And
cool. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're my first fitness guru, and you talk a lot about weight loss. You also talk about, I imagine you know a thing or two about weight gain because you're pretty
Absolutely.
jacked. So, what are some hacks that you have found with both of those? Obviously, there are no magic bullets. Let's get
For
that
sure.
clear.
For
But
sure. Yeah.
but at the same time, there are things that anybody can do that if they were just to implement into their lifestyle, it would create some pretty drastic change. So, could you speak to both of those topics?
Yes. A lot of these topics are kind of the same. So I like to, I got my degree in exercise science, so we could talk about GLUT4 translocation and physiological terms that confuse a lot of people, or we could just bring it to real life talk. Let's talk real life. Let's say you want to go somewhere in your car and you cover the gas gauge. It's going to make things a lot harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to know how much fuel you need to get where you're going. That's the number one problem people don't know. They're like, oh, I'm doing this diet. I'm doing that diet. I'm doing what this guy said. My brother's sister's cousin's uncle is a bodybuilder, or he's a diet coach. He's a personal trainer. He gave me this diet. There is no universal fix to an individual problem. You cannot do someone else's diet and expect to get the same results. Okay. Everyone has specific needs based on their height, weight, age, activity level. Okay. Something called your basal metabolic rate. You don't need to know that fancy word. What you need to do is download MyFitnessPal. Download the free app called MyFitnessPal and start tracking your food so you have a gas gauge to know how to get from point A to point B. That's it. That is literally one of the easiest things you could do without hiring a coach. Track your food intake. So like you track your bank account, like you track, money or anything like that, track your food intake.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Now with that being said, if everybody walked around with a measuring cup, but yeah, measuring cups and
Or food scale or anything like that.
scales.
That's an
Yeah, yeah.
option. You can have a food scale. Now, if you don't, you can use handheld measurements. Like your fist is
Ah,
generally a cup size. Your thumb is generally a tablespoon. You can estimate those things. With MyFitnessPal, if you eat out at a restaurant, almost every restaurant in the world is on MyFitnessPal because it's the largest platform. If there's a barcode on your food, you can scan it into the app and it automatically uploads the data. If you have a specific goal of losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, you can set that goal and it will tell you how much to eat. If you have a goal of gaining weight, you can set that goal to 0.5 pound to 2 pounds a week, and you will gain that much weight if you eat that much food.
mm,
Specificity is key. Specifically knowing how much you're supposed to eat will help. Higher protein diets are helpful on both spectrums. So, eating close to your goal body weight in grams of protein a day is that second tip. So, if you track your food, then you set a goal of at least like 1 gram per body pound. To give you an idea, my goal weight is 200. I eat about 200 grams of protein a day. For girls, it can be a little less. It can be like 0.8 times your body weight, but I keep it 1 gram per body pound just for simplicity's sake. you know?
mm.
So if you're a 150-pound dude and you want to weigh 180 pounds, shoot for anywhere between 150 to 180 grams of protein a day. Now, you don't know if you're eating that if you're not tracking your food. So use that free app and track your food. You can use your hand, you can use a scale, you can use restaurants, you can use whatever you want, but you have to know what you're doing. Because if not, you're peeing in the wind and hoping it doesn't come back on you.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out myself. That's
It's
really cool.
it's like such an easy way to do it. It takes time, but if you start now, you're going to be a lot closer than if you don't start now. So remember, I was that tiny kid, 140, 150-pound kid in high school. And now I'm the guy everyone goes to for all these programs and stuff. And it's so crazy for me to see because it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a year. It didn't happen in 5 years. I messed around a lot. I didn't take it with 100% seriousness, but I'm still at the point where I'm at because I overall continued. I would rather someone be 80% on track for 2 years than 100% on track for 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, consistency is key, definitely with
Consistency
everything,
over
right?
time. Yeah.
Right.
So don't consistently suck. That's, you
Yeah,
don't want to do that. You want to consistently progress. Consistent progression over time is key.
absolutely. Very cool. And also going back to that conversation, what do you do with your water intake? I just want to give them information, but also
Absolutely.
not incorporate the information that will keep them healthy. So with your water intake, what does that look like? Because the protein has to go through your kidneys.
Yeah, so that's some good stuff. So real quick, we'll talk about all the peer-reviewed studies and meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is a conglomerate of hundreds of studies found no problem with higher protein diets on the kidneys for anyone unless you have pre-existing kidney disease. If you have kidney disease, do not intake. Honestly, if you have kidney disease, you should be talking to your doctor or registered dietitian. So, yeah. Other than that, there's no kidney problems with higher protein diets in the recommendations that I gave you long term. Now, water intake helps absorb nutrients and transport nutrients, so that's really important. Generally, I recommend anywhere between 3/4 to 1 gallon of water a day. That's my general recommendation for almost everyone, unless you're on, water tablets, you have water retention issues, which generally doesn't happen unless you're like older than 45, 50 years old. So for the most part, 3/4 to 1 gallon a day, and that's super important. That's also a great weight loss tip too. If you're having problem with hunger and you never feel satisfied, drink at least 1 glass, 16 ounces of water before every meal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's great thoughts. Cool, man. Well, you know what? This is all great information. I'm gonna make sure that I apply this to my life first
Absolutely,
off.
man. And if you guys reach out to me on Instagram, if you have any specific questions, write them to me. I kind of slowed down training because honestly, my passion in life now, things change. It's crazy how things change. My passion in life is speaking. I've been traveling the world speaking and I love it. It is literally I can't explain how much I love it. I started modeling for Nike and Tommy Hilfiger with their adaptive clothing, and now I'm speaking for companies like that. And it's nuts. So I still help people with training. If you have questions, write me on Instagram. I'll help you for free. That's fine. I'll give you some advice. If you want a program, obviously that takes a lot more work, but if you have questions, write me. I will gladly help you.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome that you're so giving, and goodness, with all the messages that come in, that's a really generous thing to do.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I feel like it's the least you can do. The best thing you could do is give someone your time today. I feel like everyone, they think they're too busy for other people, but you never know, that relationship down the road might help you. You might be in need of help and they might be the exact person that could help you, but they don't because you didn't help them when they needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome, dude. Real quick, gosh, man, I feel like I should split this up into 2 episodes.
We can always do another version too, so I'm always down.
Absolutely.
We'll see what the people want. If they want to hear more of a certain subject, tell them to bring me back and we'll do it.
Absolutely. So, regarding your speaking and places you like to speak and places you do speak, where do you go? Where do you like to go? Where can you be hired to speak as far as different events and whatnot?
Absolutely.
What kind of events? Yeah.
I speak at all kinds of events. I speak at a lot of diabetes nonprofit events. So any sort of nonprofit, I help them raise money in terms of speaking to raise money at a gala or anything like that. I speak for different corporations like Zappos, big corporations and small. If you're a bank or insurance company or even Microsoft, any corporation I speak for and different associations. So I was just at the American Association for Diabetes Educators, and I do keynotes, opening and closing. I do different seminars, whether it's mindset, motivation, overcoming limitations, confidence, or even nutrition and all that. I just love doing anything motivational, and mostly it's been keynotes. So people love opening or closing an event with an inspirational keynote. If you're interested in having me speak at an event, you just talk to either your HR person or someone as a CEO or something like that, and we can get that ball rolling, because I love traveling the country, meeting people, and being able to share value and get people to think a little bit better and live a little bit better quality of life, whether you're an employee, nonprofit, or just a person who needs a good message.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's great. Now make sure to put that in the show links as well, or the show notes, so people can reach out to you and your assistant directly.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, man. Well, this has been a great interview. I
had a blast, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And so what I do with my interviews, I always end my interview with a little thing called freestyle rapping. Kids and adults seem to like it. So
Cool.
I'm gonna kick a little rhyme about what we talked about, and yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. All right.
Do it.
Before I do, is there any like final thought that you have for the people, or is there any final thought that you have before I jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, limitations truly are self-imposed. You know,
Yeah,
what you struggle with is something on the way you think, and you can always change the way you think, or change how you approach a problem, or change, how you endure a problem. Just understand that the only true limitation you're going to run into is the way you think.
that's awesome, man. Very cool. Appreciate that. All right. With that being said, I think I'm rolling in. All right. Check. Yo, check what I'm saying. I don't got limitations. They all up in my mind. I come through when I rhyme. I'm talking about the things that we freaking got. We need gratitude, a better freaking attitude. That's what I travel to all the freaking time. Understanding the mind. We gotta understand the things that we're going through. Make us better, make us tough like leather. And that's what I say every single day. Gotta keep it moving with Chris Ruden, cause he is doing the things in his mind, going capturing everything I find. That life is a gift, so I gotta give it back. And that's what I say with these freestyle raps. A whole bunch of things. I gotta persevere and just be that dude up in here, being consistent, here up on the mission. Words that I'm saying, everything I'm flipping. I gotta keep going until I'm ending, but I'm not ending. Yo, I'm just sending a whole bunch of love and motivation to my people now. We are just making our dreams come true. Be the inspiration, and that's what I say across the nation. We gotta come through and do them right things, and that's what I say. It's like lightning when it strikes your mind, and I come through and rhyme, spit a freestyle, and that's my time. Rolling with Chris, knowing we swift, spitting freestyles, and that's the gift. I come off the top, and that's how I go, and that's what I said with a freestyle flow.
Boom. There it is. There it is.
There it is, brother. There it is.
Yes, sir.
Man, dude, I might write a song based on everything, everything
Dope.
that just happened
That's
in this
dope.
interview, man. I feel like I just need to go write a song now
I
or something.
appreciate you, man. Honestly, like I just hope more people feel that passion, because if I can transfer my passion in the way we can think, I'm so happy, man. So I'm so fortunate to be doing what I'm doing for a living, and people like you who help share that message. I can't explain how much I appreciate enough. And I hope all the people listening know that, what you're doing is really valuable. So thank you again.
No, I appreciate you, man, and I am going to take you up on that part two offer.
Cool. We'll definitely do it. We'll see what people want, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely, man. All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Chris Ruden. Oh, go ahead and share all your social media handles, your YouTube channel, your Instagram, and anything else you want to share for the people to check you
Absolutely.
out.
Unfortunately, I can't rhyme it as good as you did, so I'm not even going to try. But you can find me, on any social media at Chris Ruden. My website is chrisruden.com. For speaking, it's chrisruden.com/speaking. And if you guys ever need anything, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely, man. All right. Thank you so much for that interview, that generous spirit, and just all the positive vibes that you're sending, man.
Absolutely. Thank you again, man.